Welcome to the 47th edition of Stump the Pastor. Our question today comes from Elizabeth in Birmingham, and she asks, where does God come from? Now, at first blush, this question may sound like one of those theological, ethereal questions that has no answer. But it is not so. According to the Bible, God came from Teman. If you want to check chapter and verse, it is found in Habakkuk 3:3. And if you've never heard Habakkuk, you probably have heard it called the prophet Habakkuk. It says, God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. What's this, you say? Well, Teman was a town southeast of Israel in southern Edom. Mount Paran is in the same area and overlooks the town and area known as Teman. Now, some have hypothesized that the word Teman simply means southerly or southwestern and could simply just be a vague reference to Mount Sinai. But don't you just love it when you get a biblical question that has a definite, finite answer? We don't get a lot of those. So why hasn't the town of Teman been excavated and studied and probed to discover more about the origins of God? Well, there is a reason. If you look in your Bible to read the 3rd chapter of Habakkuk, you will notice that the paragraphs are written in poetry, not prose. Habakkuk gives a logical question, a poetic answer. Maybe the prophet does this to show what a ridiculous question it is to ask where God comes from. No offense, Elizabeth. Or maybe the question is being asked differently. It may be more like Bob Dylan asking, how many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Well, and Bob responds, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. It makes a great song and something to hum about in your head, but it doesn't really give us any information. And maybe that's the point. As humans, we seem to be hardwired to want the facts. We want to know what is true. We want to know what is right. And especially, we don't want to get it wrong. But every time we try to nail a spiritual question to the wall, the answer makes no sense. What is the right prayer to say to become a Christian? What beliefs do I need to hold to get to heaven? Which church has the specific answers to my faith questions? Where does God come from? The answers, my friend, are blowing in the wind. If you want a logical answer, it will be a ridiculous answer. If you want the spiritual answer, then the Bible often gives us a poem or a song or a riddle. Read the prophetic books of the Old Testament, and you will notice how often the prophets spoke with poetry. Read Psalms and Proverbs, and you will find poetic answers to spiritual questions. Even the creation stories in Genesis 1-3, when the question turns to the nature of God, the author switches from prose to poetry. There are no logical answers to these kinds of questions. There are simply songs and poems and rhymes and juxtaposition of concepts and absurd contradictions and hints, but no concrete answers. The Bible doesn't even tell us how to pronounce the name Habakkuk. See, if you're in Jewish context, that's how you would say it. In most Christian contexts, it's Habakkuk. It is all simply, though, a nudge to move us away from the facts to enter the experience. It is all to get us out of our heads and into our hearts. It is all about moving us away from I'm sure, and help us to find I wonder. I believe that God delights in an inquisitive Christian. And yes, God comes from Teman. See you next time on Stump the Pastor. Well, there you go, Elizabeth. Now you know where God comes from. I hope any of you who have questions that you've been wondering about, send them to me. It may come up that it's got a logical answer, or it may come up that there's another way to see it. But you have my email address. See you next time on Stump the Pastor.